Somebody call a doctor.
I want a bigger logo. You can't handle a bigger logo.
G'day, this is the Dr. Branding Podcast. I am your branding Dr. Frank. The surgery is open. We are on air. Let's answer our next patient's question. Here we go. Today comes from Bianca in the USA. I'm wondering how much should a logo cost? I'm looking around and there's a bunch of options at various price points for my business. Why are they all so different and what should I expect to pay? Bianca, thank you for that question. Yes. Okay, logo cost. Let's break it down. Give a diagnosis first, and then come up with a prescription for you to be confident in what is right for your business, and walk away with a logo that you can be happy with for the value that you invested and the value that you will get out of it. So there's a lot of multitude of reasons why logos cost different from different providers for different reasons. Even over time, logo costs are obviously going to go up just like everything else does in the market. So today is the cheapest that you could ever get your logo, put it that way. So in terms of the different variations as to why, or the reasons why, there's a bunch of options out there at different price points, different people in different countries that you might have experienced. It can come down to things like it being a full rebrand, so having to change the logo completely, or it's a whole new logo if you're starting a new business or a product or service that you want to have that rebranded with its own logo. Or it could be a refresh, so it's updating what you have and just giving it a new kind of adjustment, new look, rather than a full, complete new look. So it's just updating the essence of what you have there already as a logo, and then update that for a new, invigorated shelf life, which could mean simplifying your logo down to work better in digital formats for other print applications at smaller and larger sizes. Let's say, for instance, you have a very detailed logo that has a lot of intricate details that don't reproduce well at smaller sizes, and the detail gets lost, let's say, and the refresh is to slightly update it. There could be small, very minor updates that get done to your logo. Again, that might be a different price point depending on who you work with. And then there's other assets that could complement the logo. So if you're not just doing a logo by itself, it might be a case of something like a visual identity or a brand system, you might call it, depending on the person you work with, where it's not just the logo. We're looking at colors, we're looking at fonts, we're looking at symbols and other imagery and all kinds of things that can visually represent the brand to be recognized in addition to the logo. They can complement each other and work as a system, visual system. But there also might be, part of an even bigger scale of branding exercise where we might look at messaging, we might look at our internal identity, of our values and our purpose, the personality, tone of voice, and we might even go deeper again to start from a better place than just starting with visuals is a strategy. So who are we targeting? Who is this for? Who is this meant to attract? Who are we up against? How is this logo going to stand out from the competition so that people see us over the competitor? All these kind of things can be in addition to a logo, and that might be where the price extends out beyond what you thought it might just be. But again, there's another layer to this. It depends on the person that you are working with. But before that, it's trying to address what this logo would do for your business in the context that it's in. Okay, based on its current market position, what is a logo of value to your business? It might not be that much, especially if you're a small business. People don't recognize it at scale to the likes of a McDonald's or a Nike, where it's ubiquitous in society. As soon as you see it, anybody knows what it is, unless you've been living under a rock your whole life or you're new to this world as a child, perhaps. So if you were what I mean by that is if you're a bigger business and that logo has some value to the reputation of your business, and if changing that would mean lost recognition from people not seeing and recognizing your product on the shelf, or when driving by in terms of signage, they might not remember the name, but they might remember the icon and the colors associated with it. There's some risk in change, and that might change the ball game in terms of the cost involved. A bit of danger money, if you will, to be able to get that logo right and make sure it does work across all different touch points and things like that. I'll probably come back to that point a little later in the prescription of how you approach this, but it is something to keep in mind where you are situationally in the market based on the timeline of your business. If you're starting out, probably not a huge factor, but over time, there is some equity that you can build into your logo. So if I know that right now it might only be worth a few $1,000s to you, but I would hazard a guess if your business grows exponentially in the next 10 to 20 years and beyond, it will increase in value over time to your business, because if it was not there, then that might be lost business to you if someone can't recognize your business for other reasons that you stand out. So there's those 2 points. I was alluding to it quickly before I got off track onto this market situation or where your brand is, but it could come down to the type of designer that you are working with or the agency that you are working with, where it might be a case of a family friend. That price is probably going to be the lowest, if not DIYing it yourself. But again, there is a cost opportunity ratio there if it's worth your time to invest into designing a logo yourself and if that's going to actually work for you. Rather than having someone that knows if a logo is going to work in different contexts and provide you with something that should meet your needs. Then you've got options on sites like Fiverr, Fiverr. If you've ever experienced this website, it's lower cost freelancers that provide design services, copywriting services, web design, 3D stuff, audio, all these kinds of different creative solutions at a very low price point. And typically they do come, in terms of the people that do produce the work for you, they do come from lower socioeconomic countries and regions where their price to entry is much lower. It's not to say the quality is necessarily lower, but potentially you are working with less experienced designers that haven't got to a place of understanding more about your business to make sure that whatever they create is going to be well placed in your market, to make sure that you stand out and don't tread on the toes of any others in your market, being your competitors. So there's Fiverr. The next kind of tier up is your inexperienced solo designer. And this might be somebody that's fresh out of university or school, might have just started this as a new pursuit. They might have, been a bit of a graphic designer here and there and wanted to give this a go. And there's not so much some experience there in terms of producing a great result, but it might be the result that your business needs for now. And then that could be updated into the future. But again, you might get what you pay for there. If it's a lower cost, a lesser result potentially, but not necessarily. When I started out this, my cost for logo design was very, very low. It was in the low thousands, if not less. And sometimes I have done logos for people for less than $1,000 just to help a new small business start out. So it can be that lower entry and still have a great result. It all depends on the person you deal with. Obviously, you probably want to look at any previous work that they have produced to get a sense of if they can deliver on a result that you think is going to look good and is comparable to really great logos that you see on the day-to-day, to make that decision and go with someone like an inexperienced solo designer. And then you have someone that's conversely an experienced solo designer, someone that's been doing this for a few years, knows the ropes, understands how to produce an effective logo that meets all the different criteria, can maybe understand a little bit about your business as well, to better provide a good solution for what you're looking for in terms of a logo and many other visual facets as well if you want to go beyond the logo. And then you might have a high reputation designer, someone that has some credibility in the space, might have a very big social following, might also be limited in terms of their opportunities to do some work. So they have a very small window of opportunity to, basically they're booked out. and I'm really dancing around the word. I can't bring it to my mind. But someone that's very busy, has a lot of work in their schedule, and to fit into that schedule might mean a higher cost as a result, in addition to maybe their reputation as well, which breeds a higher level of fee for something like a logo. And with that should come, based on the reputation, an exceptional result as a result of working with them and the produced result of a logo. It might have also come down to the experience that you have with that person too. Makes that elevated experience worth the investment, but that all comes down to the individual. So basically like an artist, if the reputation is there, or even photography, the higher the reputation, the more they're in demand. That's probably the phrase I was looking for, being in demand. Generally, the higher the price to have the access to that individual. Then moving on from a solo individual designer, we go into the smaller studios, a team of people, more eyes across it, more input to produce that result. But it, again, will probably mean a higher cost potentially due to overheads as a result. Same thing again when we get to a bigger agency that might have a more of a wider breadth of service offering in terms of their capabilities to do more than just logos. They might look at a more holistic approach, like a full brand identity and brand strategy, and maybe marketing deliverables like your website and other assets that would your logo would be touching in terms of that placement. So it could be your packaging, could be your website, could be apps, your stationery, your signage, all these things that could help you roll it out. And that's not to say those other designers I have mentioned can't help you do that. They might offer that in a package deal. You might continue working with them to help roll out that logo across other touch points. But those larger agencies are definitely looking for bigger business, more opportunity to really help you throughout the process and kind of do it for you rather than you doing it with them kind of thing. And then you get to the level of prestigious agency, which if you're at that echelon, you're probably not listening to this podcast. But these are for the big ass companies, national, international brands that have very big mass appeal, mass market to them. And the amount of touch points that they have to update is significant. Again, that's where the risk is involved, that danger money I spoke of, to have a higher price as a result, potentially in the millions of dollars to do that change. And then again, it's down to their reputation, down to their overheads, all those things. So with all those three kind of ideas of where pricing is different, be it the type of service that you do need, if it's a full rebrand, a refresh, a minor refresh, or very small tweaks to update your logo, and if there's any other assets that need to complement it, or depending on where your business is in its journey, or the type of person or team that you are working with, these can be the different factors that create a wide breadth of cost difference for something like a logo. Now, to diagnose what this brand problem is, I'm going to call it logopricitis. What you would expect to pay for a logo, or what you maybe charge for a logo. This could help out those that do branding that are listening or watching here. What should you charge for a logo? Now, let's dive into the prescription of what you might be paying here, Bianca. I can give you a general ballpark of what to expect based on those different tiers. And even for you, if you're wondering what to price your work as, there's going to be a multitude of factors as to why you would price your work at a certain rate. But let's break it down a bit, hey? Let's sort out and treat logopricitis. I'll take a quick sip of water. Now, in terms of the price, like any service or product, we need to set a price based on what the need is for you as the business owner that is providing that service. So I'm going to put that hat on at the moment, Bianca, and then we'll switch it and turn it around for you, what you're trying to look at. Now, in terms of what the designer needs to charge, it would be based on how much capacity they have, let's say over the space of a year, any overheads that are required to be met. It might be software, their hardware in terms of computers, the space that they work in, all these different factors, and then broken down into a cost of, say, let's say they could do 20 logos in a year, and then segment that down. Okay, I need to make a certain amount to live, plus some profit so I can grow my business potentially. And then, that might be $2,000 a logo times 20. That's how much we're going to charge throughout the year to get to our amount. So that's one way of pricing your logo in a very basic way. But then comes down to maybe your availability as well. If you are absolutely slammed and you're getting to a point of can't work with as many people, you might up your rate as a result, for that being that in-demand individual or agency, as a result, to be able to maybe bring more people on to help you with the workload and take on more clients rather than shun them away and say, nope, sorry, I'm too busy. So there's some other factors in terms of how you could price. You've got obviously that overhead with that team, if you do have the team, the space you're in. But then there's also the different touch points and the risk involved of changing a logo, which might be factored into what the price is that you charge. So let's say, for a mum and pop corner shop business, probably aren't going to be charged the same amount as a national business that is on the shelf of every supermarket in that country. So say in Australia, we've got 2 to 3, maybe 4 big supermarket chains. And if that national brand is in every one of those and we want to change the logo, there's high touch points where a lot of people are seeing that product. And if we change it and people can't see it on the shelf, that's a problem. It affects sales. There's some risk involved. It needs to get done right. So we're going to put the time and effort in to make sure it gets right. And as such, the associated cost with it is going to be increased. It's kind of a value-based pricing model. But just maybe it's a time factor, a opportunity factor percentage that you tack onto your standard pricing to accommodate the need of the business in that context. And I think that's more than fair to do based on the size of the business. It might not necessarily come into your factor of pricing. It's just one set price that you do offer. That could be totally fine as well. You charge what you need. You don't need a whole growth plan or anything like that. You just have the capacity that you have and you charge accordingly based on what you need. That's totally fine. And then based on where you are in terms of your situation as a designer, if you're a Fiverr designer, you kind of have to charge based on the platform. If you're doing it as a family favor or a friend or something like that, you're probably not going to charge your full rate, but I would treat business as business. And if family and friends are willing to be charged what it is you charge, then great. But if you want to offer them a discount, obviously, or do it for free, that is totally up to you. But as your experience grows, you're more likely than not to increase your price over time to a point where you might get yourself to a bit of a pricing ceiling, where the charging for your services gets to a certain point where you're like, I'm probably not working with a market that can afford this anymore, and you need to change your business model where you might get to a certain ceiling, you expand your business more, and you get a less experienced designer to help you produce the result for a lesser fee in terms of that, and you take the top part of an engagement to just manage your projects and take on more projects, and as a result, you grow your business and grow your business, grow your business. We'll be doing that in a later episode, I'm sure of it, that kind of understanding. But the other part to it is, your reputation. Again, you can add a multiplier on top of that, I guess, as well. Or if you're in a small studio in a larger agency, obviously you're having to charge a higher rate, again, to cover your overhead costs for your staff and your office space, and any other factors that are associated with it in terms of your experience level, those clients that you've worked with before, and your reputation that comes along with it. Again, multipliers there. Now, in terms of what you would charge or what you could expect to be charged here, Bianca, in terms of the price, In terms of a budget option, you're probably looking anywhere between $0 and $500. And this is going to be either your Fiverr designer or an inexperienced designer just starting out with logo design. And, that gets you off the ground for a small business and might last you forever and a day. You never know. I mean, Coca-Cola's logo back in 1970, whatever it was, maybe 71 or 76 or something like that, was designed for, I think, $37 by a lady named Carol, who was helping out, what's his name? The shoe dog, Phil Knight, and produced that for $37. She did get stock options in the end years later, but that logo stuck and stayed with Nike for years and years. Much like Coca-Cola's logo was originally designed by, I think, one of the founders or somebody in that team originally. I can't remember the exact origin story. It was over 100 years ago now. But same thing, logo has stuck since day one, and it might be iterated slightly over time, and it stays with it. I met the Apple logo designer a few years back for a podcast interview, Rob Janoff. He designed the original Apple logo. It's been slightly tweaked since, but otherwise it has remained the same since 1971, I think it was. So, they can stick around, even if it's a budget thing where you maintain that brand and don't change it. That's the advice there, is try not to change your logo. So you want to make sure that you invest in a great option to begin with. So that might mean a higher investment. So anywhere between a 1 to 3K investment, which is generally a beginner intro kind of designer, that inexperienced designer. And then we've got the experienced designer, which might charge anywhere between $3,000 to $15,000. And then someone that has a high reputation, and then into the territory of a small agency, is charging between $5,000 and maybe $20,000, maybe if not more, depending on the business that they're working with. So if, Bianca, you have a larger company, a high amount of touch points that somebody is obviously recognizing your business for, again, the associated cost may go up as a result. And then we're looking at higher end, anywhere from $50,000 to millions of dollars for big logo refreshes. BP, I think, famously was charged $20 million or something like that. It might have even been more, but there's probably other associated reasons why that cost what it cost. But there's been $1 million logos done in this world, definitely. So that echelon between the high echelon of price and the budget can be quite different, obviously, and it's that kind of increasing scale of pricing. The same would apply for branding in general, and any kind of creative agency, be it marketing agency, advertising agency, those kind of places, same kind of thing. We're seeing that bell curve go up as a result of who you're working with, based on their experience and their size and their capacity to help you in terms of the output deliverables and the process involved, obviously, too. So there's some pricing for you. If you want a bit of a deep dive on pricing and what to charge for your services, you're in a bit of the dark as a designer, let's say. There's a great bit of research that was done by Jacob Cass. You might have heard of him. He runs his studio called Just Creative. He's also wearing and rocking pink for his business, his branding business, but he did a bit of research on the state of brand end of last year, and more recently, depending on the pricing there. So if you want to look up his website, justcreative.com, yes. And then I think it's /state-of-brand-report. You'll get the report there, and it has a full myriad of research in terms of what people are using for software, what they're charging for their services, what experience they have, all kinds of different bits of questions that were answered by others like yourselves. And if you're a business as well, you want to check out that, see what designers are up to, what branding agencies and solo business operators are charging and doing out there, then by all means you could look at that as well. But I think, Bianca, based on what you're looking at, I would probably say that a great option for you, most likely you're a small to medium business, would be anything under $1,000 might be a bit of a risk to you, because you might end up getting a potentially not as great result and then you have to go and do it again with somebody else. Again, that's more cost. Or getting it done from someone that has a bit better experience, and again, that's more cost to use. So if you had done it right the first time, it's kind of like that old proverb of like hitting the nail. Sorry, measure twice, cut once. That's the proverb I was thinking of. I was thinking of another thing in my head for some reason. But yeah, measure twice, cut once is the better way, obviously, to do it. And it applies in this case that if you work with a more experienced provider, the more likelihood that you're going to get a better result, especially if you can see their previous work on their website or on their social media, or even in case studies that they might be able to provide you in a call. But I think anywhere between $1,000 to $10,000, I know that's a bit of a scale in terms of its breadth of price. But if you are confident in that designer and they deliver on the results, I think the end outcome will pay for itself over time, even if it does feel a bit steep to begin with. Over time, what that value is to your business should prove itself over time as more and more customers, clients, audience recognize your visual presence in something like a logo where you are baking in meaning based on how much you charge and what your value is and the people involved in your business and the experiences people remember and come back to you for. That's going to all be baked into your logo. Yeah. And that's what the value of a logo can be. It's that all that reputation and experiences that people have, their trust, or maybe their negative experiences as well, which is not what we're aiming for, obviously, is baked into a logo. And that's the value of a logo. And that takes time to build that equity in your logo and in other brand touch points as well, where you might have certain colors that do signify your brand, so that at first glance, in the certain context that you're in, you're walking through a shopping center and you see orange and you see the tick, the swoosh, you see Nike instantaneously. You don't need to see the word there. You know exactly what that store is, what that store sells, what to expect when you go in there. And that's branding essentially. Now, it also depends here on what else is included. And I would say and suggest that if all you think you need, maybe if you're a small business and you haven't really treated branding not properly, but haven't invested in it, put it that way, and you've started your business, you bootstrap things, you got to a point where you've got some great cash flow going, you've got a steady stream of customers or clients coming in, business is good, you're looking to grow to the next level of presence in your industry and in your market, and you're thinking that just a logo is all you need. Maybe, but most likely it could be more than that, and creating something that is a more holistic view of your business's presence in the market to create this conduit feeling and representation that people will see as that first impression, as well as what they remember you for, so that all those associations that people have with your business are being baked into your branding, so that it's easy to recognize, easy to find, comes to mind first. And that might not just be in your logo. So it might be those colors and fonts. It might be the messaging that you deliver out there. It might be the personality or the tone of voice that you have. It might be how that's expressed in your team on the day-to-day when they're engaging with your customers and clients. It might be the strategy you have to make sure that your brand is in the right spaces that it needs to be to grow and reach a bigger audience and customer base. There's all these different factors that we can think of that are more than just a logo, as logos tend to be a very, very small piece of the puzzle of why your brand succeeds. It can be based on the product and service that you offer, obviously, the customer service that you deliver, the pricing that you set, where your product is positioned against competitors, be it the cheaper or the more expensive, the more premium, the more available, the more exclusive, where it's positioned on a shelf, all those kinds of different factors, say on a supermarket, are you on the top shelf, are you on the middle shelf, are you in the prime spot, or are you down the bottom when no one can see you? All these different things. Are you available in as many stores as possible so that people can find you no matter where they are? Are you easily accessible? Or are you not as accessible? That exclusivity I spoke of. these can be a lot of different factors that make more impact on your brand potentially than a logo. Because a logo at the end of the day will just be that signifier for all the other things that you need to think of, and will most likely grow as your business grows. Those things might come inherently in your day-to-day operations, or you might be able to sit down, say once a year or twice a year, and really look at your brand and go, well, okay, we've got this working for us. Our logo's still working for us. All our other different touch points are working for us, but there's some other factors within our brand that aren't quite working right. We're getting some feedback from people. We're not getting as many sales in these certain areas. What can we do to improve our brand presence so that people are choosing us over somebody else? It's probably not going to be because of the logo. But we need a logo, obviously. And we need to be proud of it. We need to have it everywhere possible so that it is blatantly recognizable, and it will become of value to your business over time, so that if it only costs $1,000 to $10,000 now, it should be worth to your business exponentially more over time. So see it as an investment if you can, if you have the cash flow to do so, or build up that investment over time until you can properly invest in this to get it right and to make sure it is maintained over time so that you have a great brand presence and that logo does work for you. Anyway, that felt like a lot. So I would say in terms of, treating logopricitis, it does depend on where your business is. It does depend on who you are working with, and it does depend on the stage of business that you are at to be able to determine if the price is right. We're not going to play that game. I used to work in TV land, and we did produce The Price is Right, but it's got to work for you as much as it does for the provider. And then from there, you work out if this is the right investment for you. But you need to be confident in that person, obviously. You need to be able to see that, okay, this person can deliver and we can create something great from this, and then walk away proud of your logo so that you can wear it for all and ever a day after that without being sick of it. That might be one point, is that you might get sick of your logo over time. But another added prescription there is to say that you're going to get wear out of your logo and colors and other different assets that you might have much faster than your customer is, your client does, your audience does, because they don't see it as much as you do. This is made for them to be able to recognize you and obviously think of you and find you when needed. So keep these things in mind when you're looking at logopricitis. And I wish you all the best in terms of finding the right provider. If you want to work with me, by all means you can, g'dayfrank.com. But that's my shameless plug for this episode. But I will say, look, thank you again for asking that question, Bianca. And for those of you listening, I do hope that might help you too, no matter if you're a designer or a business owner. Please take my piece of brand candy, a free resource guide to do better branding that you can get on your way out at g'dayfrank.com/candy. And if you want to make an appointment via that link as well, you can ask a brand-related ailment question that you'd like some help with. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next appointment in my next episode. Thanks for listening. The surgery is now closed. The Dr. Branding Podcast is hosted by Reagan Frank McCrill, that's me, and for legal reasons I want to be clear that I am not a registered or qualified doctor. The premise for this podcast is that it is a satirical analogy for branding consultancy to help others with their brand success. This podcast is also sponsored by my branding business, G'day Frank. Say g'day today by booking a call with me at g'dayfrank.com.